Good afternoon, which is what it is here on Thursday afternoon in Minneapolis and St. Paul in Minnesota. Nice to have you in another session of I Was Just Thinking. We're going to go around the world today. We're going to talk to three different people in three different countries about what tourism is like in their countries. Are domestic travelers actually going on vacations? Are they quarantined? What are the rules regarding their travel? And perhaps more importantly, to some of our viewers or most of our viewers, what do they think about Americans? They're looking forward to the opening of borders so that Americans can come? Are they looking at us like, please stay away? We're going to talk about that with I'm going to talk with John von Sothen, who is you see on the screen right now. He is the author of a book, a fabulous book. We've had him on this one of the very first webinars. He's one of my first guests. It's a book called Monsieur, Mediocre, One American Learns the High Art of Being Everyday French. It is a very, very funny book. I can't recommend it more, particularly if you're interested in Paris and France. He married a French woman, and he and his wife and children live in Paris. Then we're going to talk to a husband and wife team from Rome. They run a cooking school in Rome. We'll talk with them about what's going on in Italy, and then we'll go around the other way to Asia and talk to Steve Croll in Chiang Mai, which is a town in northern Thailand, an important city there. So we're going to go around the world today, maybe talk 15 minutes, 20 minutes with each guest, and see what's going on. Just remember that you can go to Savtrav49 on YouTube and watch some of our past broadcasts. This broadcast will be posted probably late Friday, early Saturday at the latest. And if in the course of watching this, you think there's something your friends might like to see, or you would like, or if you missed part of it, please feel free to go watch it on YouTube. John, welcome to the show. Let's start with you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Let's first establish the fact you are an American.
Correct.
And you have lived in France how long now?
Close to 20 years. I came over here in 2002 and haven't left. Thought I was going to come over for a short period, and it was kind of like I just stayed on.
Did you fall? And you fell in love in Paris, obviously, the woman who's now the mother of your children and your wife.
Correct. I came for l'amour, as they say.
But you didn't really go there for l'amour, did you? No.
You
had met in New York, didn't you?
Yes, we had met in New York, and then she moved back to Paris, and I kind of followed her here.
Yeah, that's how I wound up in St. Paul, Minnesota. You know, I always, when I give speeches, it's proof that a little traveling can get you in a lot of trouble.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
You have two children now, right?
Yeah, we have two children, and age 18 and ages 14.
Wow.
Yeah. I know. Wow. Time flies, right?
You haven't. Did you speak any French when you went over there?
I did. I had a base. I had majored in French in college.
Okay.
But obviously learning French in school is nothing when you hit the ground in Paris. There's different speeds, and there's the one in practice and the one in the game.
Where did you go to school to learn French?
University of Wisconsin, Madison.
Of course.
Your neighbor. The Badgers.
Minnesota was actually founded by the French, and the state motto is something in French.
No way. I didn't know that.
Yeah, because there were fur traders coming down from the French region of Canada who really
trappers
settled. Yeah, I consider myself an East Coast guy, though I've now lived here 20 years. Shoot me now.
Yeah.
But when I learned that, I was like, oh, well, that gives it a little more international flair. Maybe I'll be happier living here. At any rate.
Yeah,
okay. So the news is that countries, Spain, France, England, I don't know about Italy. I'll find out with our next guest, but are experiencing a spike now in COVID positives again.
Yeah.
I think just last week the French government shut bars and restaurants. Restaurants that serve food can still seat people. What's the reality there on the ground in Paris?
Yeah, no, it's true that there has been an uptick in new cases, and it's gotten to a startling level for the French. It's kind of running around 15,000 a day, which is less than in the U.S. But remember that the French population is 1/6 the U.S. So those numbers are alarming. They did impose new restrictions in Paris last week. Like you said, bars have been closed. and restaurants are under kind of a new protocol where tables have to be kind of spaced further apart. What's weird is the cafe thing. You have these cafe owners who are trying to kind of call themselves restaurants now.
Suddenly.
So they could, suddenly. To kind of keep themselves open.
Have you tried our food?
Yeah. And it's been strange the last week because I keep going up to these cafe people saying, "Are you going to be open tomorrow? Not. What are you? What are you? Are you a bar? Are you a restaurant?" So with the cafes, they kind of left it a little gray. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
No, but I have noticed that it's less spontaneous now. You have to kind of call in advance to get a reservation. And I do think it's probably wise. I was a little leery. Paris back in September was pretty full capacity, and cafes were pretty crowded, and even restaurants were pretty crowded in terms of tables being next to each other. And you kind of see the result of what's going on now.
What is the mask situation there?
Yeah, well, masks are obligatory on the street, anywhere. You can get a €135 fine if you're not wearing a mask.
And the French, I mean, my daughter has a home in Cap Ferret. I think not Cap Ferrat on the French Riviera, below Bordeaux, Cap Ferret. Yeah. And she spent the summer there with my two granddaughters. And, my granddaughters were saying, "Grandma, come see us. You can sneak in, and I didn't. Sarah said the French do put the smackdown on you. I mean, they don't mess around.
No. I've seen fines given in the street. But it's a bit incoherent sometimes. Like, for example, if you're on a bike, you're required to wear a mask. But then I've seen people biking past cafes, and they're pedaling past a table of 6 people who are all congested without masks, eating and laughing and telling jokes. Right. And that's kind of been, I think, the incoherence of what's been going on, and it may be a reason why we've had these recent spikes.
Well, France is not alone in that, but I gather that Paris and larger cities like Marseille have different rules than the rest of the country. For example, are the rules you just described to me national?
No, it's been more for Paris, Marseille, and Aix-en-Provence. Weirdly, I think it's just probably the whole sector.
Places where they've noticed a bigger spike in cases.
Right, and where there's more of a confluence of people.
Do you know? And I should have looked this up before we talked. How many deaths there have been in France since this started?
A lot. I mean, I think it's close to 30,000, maybe even a little more, which has been one of the most for a European country.
Yeah, because if you say France is 1/6 the size of America, you multiply 30,000 by 6, you have 180,000. We're at 16, I think. So you're not as bad as we are proportionately, but you're not as far behind as many other countries,
No, and it was weird always hearing kind of like, that sometimes Americans are quick to applaud the Europeans and applaud France for its healthcare system and everything like that, and the reality has been that France kind of dropped the ball from the get-go. They made up a lot of speed, with the strict confinement. The numbers came down, but the numbers kind of speak for themselves.
Was there a lot of pushing to open up for tourism before this recent spike?
Yeah, one of the things I think they're lamenting is the vacances, the sacré vacation time in August.
Ah, right.
Which was kind of like weirdly never up for debate in terms of limiting people traveling. I mean, the only limit was that you had to stay inside France. But for a lot of French, that's fine. Hey, I'll go down to the Riviera. I'll go to Cap Ferret. I'll go to the Savoie.
For a while there, tourism was domestic tourism was fine.
Yeah, and I think there was an economic element to a lot of these places needed the income, and we were on vacation, and I remember at certain times just being shocked by just the number of people out, and because you forget that a lot of the French go on vacation at the same time. Yeah, it's not kind of staggered like in the U.S., and so all of August you had pretty much of a whole country going on vacation during a pandemic.
What do you think the general French feeling is about bringing back American tourists?
It's interesting you say that. I had dinner the other night with a bunch of Americans, kind of a group of expats. We get together every 1 or 2 months, and we were all sitting at a table speaking English, of course. And the owner came over, and he goes, "Ah, you are tourists. You just arrived." And we were like, "No, sorry." He was happy to see us, and then we said, "No, sorry, we're expats. We live here full time." And he kind of just turned around, deflated, and walked back to his. He was disappointed.
I would have thought that no matter what nationality you are, they would go, "Americans? I don't think so. Stay away." No?
Yeah, I do think that, a lot of these restaurants in Paris or a lot of these places are feeling the pinch economically.
Well,
and
right.
They can get beyond the politics for the moment and just kind of, the bottom line counts.
Folks who might not own a restaurant, might not be involved in the tourism business?
Sorry, could you repeat that again?
What about folks who aren't in the tourism business, just the average citizen? Is he or she got any strong feelings on Americans flooding the country as usual?
I don't think so. I think for the average, I'll speak as a Parisian. I consider myself a Parisian. Being in Paris right now is kind of the equivalent of what Paris is like in August, where the city pretty much is at about half capacity. But it's odd this time because in August, usually Paris is just full of tourists and no locals.
Right.
And now it's full of locals and no tourists.
But are people sheltering at home more? Is that why the streets are emptier, or are they off at vacation homes, just working from there or staying there?
No, I think the city's pretty much at doing business as usual. If you go down to the subway's pretty crowded. Everybody's wearing masks. People are mostly going back to their work, going back to jobs. My son is in school, and school's operating at full power. That's a toughie too, because they're wearing masks throughout the day. The professors are wearing masks throughout the day. I just got called by a professor that Otto had been kept after school yesterday because he took off his mask at recess to have a snack.
Yeah. So have you seen a reduction? I mean, are people? What was I going to ask you? I'm sorry, it just slipped my mind. Are right now this week? Have the numbers sort of leveled, or are they still creeping upwards?
They're still creeping upwards. Deaths have pretty much leveled, but what they're worried about is hospital saturation. Right. What I've noticed is long lines. You see them throughout the city of people getting tested outside of what they call laboratoire labs or doctor clinics. So I think the cases are still going up. I think France is. I don't know if nobody's talking about a second reconfinement yet. I don't know if they could survive it economically. I think the government's gonna try to kind of, pick their battles and maybe do surgical strikes like they're doing in Marseille and Paris right now.
I know under your medical care, usually you don't have to pay for much. Do you have to pay? Do folks have to pay for that test they're lining up for?
No, you don't have to pay for the test. But I got tested, and I did notice that the lag time was pretty long, considering, you kind of want to know pretty soon. I think my results came back 5 days later.
Whoa, that's a long time.
So, that's another thing of the incoherence in terms of like, get tested, and then, but we will let you know in 5 days.
Yeah, in those 5 days, you could have turned positive, and
exactly. So,
right. Is it a source of stress for your family?
Yes and no. I think we're kind of like the French have a kind of resignation to things sometimes, and I think wearing a mask is become kind of like second nature in a way.
It's not a political issue as it is here in America.
No, that's one thing we haven't had here.
And what about other citizens from other EU countries? Can they still come into France and pass across borders?
I think so. I think with England though, it's since Brexit, no. And if I were to go to London right now, I think I would have to be quarantined for 2 weeks. Just as anybody coming into France right now, 2-week quarantine.
Can you could you hop the train and go to Brussels for lunch or dinner?
I think so. But I might need to be tested before I leave and
well, and get your results 5 days later.
yeah, so I don't know. I mean, it's not rocket science. It hasn't been this precision that we think it, the French healthcare system can be lauded always. I don't know. I mean, it was a weird time in March and April when the pandemic first started. There was mixed messages coming from the government that masks don't serve anything. They're useless, and that was kind of just a way to cover up the fact that nobody had masks. And,
right. Well, I mean, we had that uncertainty here as well.
Yeah.
Now we and I think that sort of uncertainty and varying rules is pretty much the norm, except in some places like like Thailand and Taiwan and South Korea, where the government comes down a little harder and says, "Here's the deal," and we go, "Okay." Do you here, speaking as an American in America, our president is going on the campaign trail after surviving COVID and saying it's great, it's over, it's not that big a deal, even as we have 700 deaths a day.
Right.
And we've rounded the corner. There's a cure now. Do you hear that kind of happy talk from your leaders?
No. More, it's kind of like we're kind of like in a trench warfare here, and we have to make the best of it. And it's more kind of like school marm. You better start wearing your mask more, or there's going to be a second reconfinement.
I think they're right. Reconfinement is what everybody dreads. I know.
Yeah.
John Van Sothen, thank you so much for taking time out of your day in Paris. Again, John's book. If you want to have an entertaining read about an American stumbling through his way through France and finding out all kinds of strange little mores and fashions that those of us who visit France only occasionally know about. The book is called Monsieur, Mediocre. I could not more highly recommend it. It's great fun. And John, I know you did a webcast with us when we first started this webcast.
Yeah.
You were on a weekend radio show, and I keep promising you dinner or lunch in France. But ever since that happened, I haven't been able to get there. So I still extend that promise. I look forward to seeing you.
I look forward to seeing you, Rudy. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you for being on the show.
And à bientôt. J'espère.
And good luck to you and the family. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you. That is John Van Sothen is an author and journalist and obviously a resident in France. We're joined now by Sally Ransom and her husband, Guido Santi. Sally and Guido operate a company called Convivio Rome. And they will teach you how to do some Italian cooking. They will arrange a food tour for you and a lot of other things. And we're going to check in and see what's going on in Rome and see if it resembles anything that's happening in Paris or, for that matter, in the United States. Michael, can you call them up on camera? I know they're there. You could call her on her cell if you don't mind, Michael, and tell her to turn on the camera. She may be able to hear.
I've got the camera on.
Sally, it's up in the upper left-hand corner. It looks like a locomotive coming at you. That blue circle next to the microphone. There we go. There you are. I know it's the weirdest symbol. It's the weirdest symbol. Now you're gonna have to adjust your camera so we can see both you and Guido.
Okay, because we're gonna.
Okay.
Oh,
there you are. I haven't seen you guys in a long, long time.
No.
Hello, Rudy.
Hi, Rudy. Can you see us? Okay.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. If you can tip your computer screen even. There you go. So we get a full. There you are.
Get a little closer together.
Hang on.
Yes.
Closer and further away.
Yes. Now, you notice Guido does have an Italian accent, as befits somebody who's Italian. Sally, on the other hand, is Australian, and yeah, and somehow she snared a handsome Italian guy, and they live in Rome. And how long have you Sally? How long have you lived in Italy now?
I think now about 22 years.
And
so a lot longer than I ever expected.
When you went to Italy, were you going on vacation, or did you intend to live there?
No, I just came over to teach English as a foreign language. I'd been living in England for about a year and a half, and I needed a bit of sunshine. So I came over to Italy, and within about a week, I met Guido. So that's all history now.
Well, I was just talking to John Van Soten, who's an American who lives in Paris, who just went over to Paris for, and then met his wife and now has 2 children who are in their teens and lives in Paris. And I said to him, I live in St. Paul. I'm an East Coast guy from the United States. I now live in St. Paul, Minnesota. And as I said to John, Sally, this is why a little travel is dangerous.
Oh.
Yeah, because, you run into guys like Guido and you never leave,
Oh, so. I know. Sorry. I know those small trips. In fact, I left Australia just for a month.
Right.
When I actually left, and I have been back, but it's been about 22 years now. So, yeah.
Well, congratulations. Give us a brief, either of you, give me a brief description of what Convivio Rome offers.
Yeah. Well, we've been first of all, I'm Guido, and I was born in Rome. I'm Italian, and lived in English-speaking countries for a while as well, but I'm an 8th-generation Roman. Sally and I moved to the countryside just directly north of Rome 15 years ago, and since then we've been running cooking classes in this beautiful location of the Sabine Hills. That's how the area is called. Very rural, very famous for its olive oil. We've been running these cooking courses, cooking classes, and holidays. Also olive tours and wine tours in this beautiful area. And of course,
I attended along with my then girlfriend Anna, who is not my girlfriend anymore, but it's why I live in St. Paul, so I'll hold that against her forever. I attended, and so you could do a long weekend, right, of cooking school, or longer, I presume.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And do you also help people do food tours of Italy, or just Rome, or the area?
Most of the area, yeah.
Okay, so if you're interested in Italian cooking, and the website is conviviorome.com, correct?
That's
exactly.
It, yes. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about life in Rome in the COVID era. What are the rules in Italy, or at least are the rules in Rome different than the rest of Italy? Let's start with that.
Okay, we have slightly stricter rules in terms of wearing a mask outside outdoors in Lazio, which is our rated region, which includes Rome, of course. In the sense that in the rest of Italy, well, except for Campania, except for Naples as well, the rest of Italy, you can wear a mask. You can essentially keep a mask with you until you encounter other people, really. And then you put it on. Whereas here, you need to have it on all the time. So even as we live in the countryside, and we're actually out in the countryside compared to when you came along, Rudy. We were in a little village just next door to it, in a beautiful countryside area. Essentially, there are not many people around, and the only gathering we see is probably sheep. But we still have to wear a mask all the time. That's
so in those 2 regions, the rules are more strict. In those 2 regions, the rules are more strict.
Yeah, in the sense that we just have to have it on all the time. But apart from that, it's similar to the rest of Italy.
Are restaurants and bars operating any differently than they do in normal times right now?
Of course not. They're not. First of all, now the closing time is 11 p.m., which for Italy, being a Mediterranean country, is quite unusual, as you can probably imagine. Bars and restaurants need to close at 11 or 9 o'clock if they don't have seating outside.
But if they have seating outside, they can stay open. If they have seating outside, they can stay open later than 11. No,
up to 11 if they have seating, and they have table service. Otherwise, it's 9 p.m.
But all bars and restaurants are basically open.
They pretty much are. Unfortunately, since the lockdowns back in March, April, and partly May, quite a lot of them actually shut down and never reopened, especially in the city areas like Rome. Actually, the city areas were actually worse off from that point of view.
That is,
But
as you probably know, that's happening in America. Except they've been locked down for months, so we're losing many restaurants. In restaurants, is there a requirement that people sit further apart than normal, or is it regular seating?
it's the 1 meter rule, which makes it kind of almost regular seating. Really, we had the 1 meter rule really since back in March again, and essentially wearing a mask until you get to your table, and then once you finish, you wear it again and go essentially.
So 1 meter is 3 feet, which is not very far. You're right. That's not difficult to maintain. It's 6 feet here in the States, by the way, as you may know.
Oh, really? Okay.
How generally, Sally, let me ask you this: how generally is in-country tourism by Italians? I mean, are Italians traveling to other parts of Italy more so than not?
Yeah, I think probably with the lockdown and the result of it, a lot of people are not traveling outside of Italy. So that means that there's a lot more sort of circulation of Italians around Italy. So yeah,
a little bit more. Yeah.
Not a huge amount. In fact, I think a lot of people over the summer just decided to stay home. You know, like they just do what they would normally do rather than go and travel anywhere, because they felt that it was safer. So there's still that sort of concern, you know, that it's still around, the virus is still around, and so therefore they're a little bit more cautious. So
can you hop on a train and go to Switzerland or France for a short stay? Can you cross borders easily?
Switzerland shouldn't be a problem at the moment, as far as I know. France, neither, I don't think.
Okay, and EU countries, folks from EU countries can come into Italy without a problem?
Yeah, I think, Switzerland is no problem. I think they just introduced with France and the UK that you have to test. You have to do one of those quick tests.
Well, is that you have to do it on your own before you come, or you have to do it when you arrive, or you have to do it at the border, or how? I mean, you just have to carry a test with you, a recently dated test.
From what I understand, you have to do a test within 72 hours before you board a plane.
Yeah.
And if you haven't done that test, as soon as you arrive, you have to do a test within, I think it's 48 hours.
That's it.
And within that, you have to be self-confined. You know, like you can't go out anywhere at that point in time until you get the results of that test. If you're before you board the plane, if you're tested positive, you're not allowed to go on the flight anyway. So they're relatively recent regulations, and I think it's to try and encourage people to travel, obviously, because they want, you know, to open up the borders again, but not have people come in that have the virus, you know, bring the virus in. So they're very strict on it too. You know, you think sometimes you get away with not doing it, but they'll follow up on it. So it's really important that it's done just at this point in time. I mean, regulations and rules are always changing. So
yeah, I was just going to say the rules just keep changing everywhere in the world, pretty much, except for some Asian countries who just said, and you know, Australia is saying we're not allowing anyone in till the end of 2021. So that's a pretty firm rule. Are there a lot fewer flights like there are in America? I mean, not so many planes flying anywhere.
No, not many, to be honest. There are some coming from America because only because we know this, because we have a friend who's a flight attendant. So he told us there's maybe 1 or 2 flights from, definitely does New York, mostly. But I don't know if they special flights for primarily for business, I would assume. But there are some.
Well, they may be, you know, Guido, they may be carrying cargo. You know, these American flights that are international. I flew to London the other day, about 10 days ago, and there were, you know, it was a wide body plane that seats 300 people. There were 35 people on it, but I'm sure the cargo hold was filled with cargo because that's how they're, you know, and some airlines must keep flying to maintain their right to use a gate, which of course is a very, you know, coveted. So you are in the tourism business, so you clearly have been affected for the last well, since last March, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We, as you know, Rudy, we do face-to-face tourism. So most of our clients, our guests are from America. I would just hazard to say about 90%. And at the moment, and then when everything closed down and all flights were stopped, all of the bookings we had for this year were cancelled, one after the other. We've had none since. So for our business, it's really dramatic.
And this is going to be, sorry, Sal, it's going to be probably the best year so far.
Like, yeah, with all
in
the
terms of
bookings.
bookings. Would have been a really big year for us, really busy.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Are you doing any virtual cooking lessons for folks?
Yeah, in fact, that's what we've done. We've very quickly sort of changed our business around, and now basically what we do is everything online. So we have virtual online cooking parties. We have one-to-one cooking classes. We've got information packs. We've got Italian sort of video cooking packages, and we also have a membership that we've started as well. So it's been running for the last 4 months, and it's called Guido's Cook Club. And we try and keep people sort of in touch with Italy and the fun of cooking. And yeah, so we're like, it's almost like starting a business from scratch though, because
Sure, yeah.
you know, another arm of the business. So we're lucky to have you know, our business has been running for about 15 years, so we're lucky to have a very loyal clientele.
Yeah.
And with that, we've been able to sort of tap into that clientele to sort of promote the activities, online activities, virtual cooking classes that we have at the moment. So that's really helped. But it's like starting from zero. So it's
Right.
you know, and with no end in sight, just at this immediate future, we've just got to keep going on this line for the moment until we get, you know, the borders open up again and we get people back face to face. But I think even then, I think we've learned from this that we have to keep an online presence. So we will keep our, you know, Guido's Cook Club going. We'll keep all the virtual cooking parties, and you know, it's a lot of fun for us too, and it's a way of meeting people all over the world, and you know, they can book instantly. So it's actually got it's quite fast as a sort of a new arm of the business, because often people would book 6 months in advance to come and get a space for a cooking program or cooking holiday. And now they can think, oh, what am I doing this Saturday night? Oh, nothing. Let's see if I can do a virtual cooking class. And if we're free, we take everybody, anyone and everyone.
And if that sounds interesting to you, again, the website is conviviorome.com, and you can join Guido's Cooking Club. Generally, I know Spain, France, and England have been in the news, at least in America, about recent spikes in the number of positive COVID cases. Has Italy is starting to see a rise again? What's going on there?
Yes, there are more cases. I think yesterday, this is the latest update. Yesterday at 6 p.m., there were about a little less than 5,000, I think, new cases. And as in France,
Guido, is that 5,000? Guido, is that 5,000 per day?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Just a little 4,000.
That's not bad compared to John, who we were just talking to in Paris, and certainly compared to the United States. So how are people? I mean, as I said to John, in America, our president is holding these big campaign rallies, saying, "Oh, we've turned the corner. It's ending. We've got a cure." And still 700 people a day are dying in the United States, and the numbers keep going up. Is your government saying, "Oh, we've pretty much got it under control, relax, it's going to be okay"? Or are they saying, you know, wear those masks, don't screw around here, you know, get serious?
Well, they've been pretty strict, to be honest. But our death rate at the moment is pretty low. It kept on the kind of 30 units per day, 25, 22, and now just yesterday went up a little bit to 35, I think, about 35. I mean, obviously I'm no doctor, but for what I can read, here in Italy, they start, as I'm sure in many other countries. They started treating people a little earlier, so they're a little bit more ready compared to what they used to early in the year, and that's making a difference on how many people actually get sick and get hospitalized.
Did you say there were 35 deaths a day in Italy from COVID?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's
that's the highest though since July. Kind of. So that's yesterday. That's yesterday at 6 p.m. From the day before, of course.
How are you guys feeling in your day-to-day life? I mean, is this getting tiring? I mean, leaving aside the business angle, I know you would like to get back to normal tourism, but just generally living in Italy. I ask this because, fair or not, Italians have this sort of reputation of not really listening to what somebody tells them to do because we're Italian, but it seems like Italy is taking this serious. I know in the beginning, certainly up north, things were so bad. But it sounds like the country is taking this very seriously. And how do you feel about that? Do you feel, you're all working toward the same goal?
Well, yeah, most people, I don't know of anyone that's not, applying to these rules. There've been some slightly strict rules in terms of gatherings, and that's maybe one thing that people, despite Italians are known also for having a strong social life and enjoying the outdoors and gathering together, having parties. That's been, from what I can see, has been definitely cut down. So most people are just following what the guidelines are.
Well, I can tell. Sally and Guido, in the United States that masks have become a political issue.
He has a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
They're a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, mask. It's interesting because there was this Italian representative of WHO, which very early on this was in actually late March, early April, said went to TV and said they worth nothing, just don't wear them, and then the same person goes on TV just a few days ago and is absolutely had to wear them in. So.
Yeah, we had that indecision in the beginning too. Masks don't do anything, and now they're considered the first front line of defense. Sally and Guido, thank you so much for giving us a snapshot of what life is like in Italy. We hope to be able to visit there again. Who knows when? But Sally Ransom and Guido Santi run a company called Convivio Rome. They're certainly very involved in tourism because, as Sally mentioned, 90% of their business is Americans. We hope you can return to normalcy soon. And I know there are a whole lot of Americans anxious to get to Italy as soon as they can. So hang in there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rudy.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time, Sally and Guido. Take care. I miss you guys, and all good luck.
And we
hope to see you soon.
Yeah, hope to see you soon, Rudy.
Thank you. All right, bye-bye. Guido and Sally, there they go. My next guest is, we're going all the way around to the other side of the world to talk to an American expat who has lived in Asia for decades. His name is Steve Croll. He's lived for a long time. I met him first in Bangkok, in Thailand, the capital of Thailand, where he lived for a long time. And not long ago, he moved up north to one of Bangkok's larger towns, but certainly more rural than Bangkok. It's called Chiang Mai. It's in the northern part of Thailand, and he lives there now. And I actually was visiting with him in Chiang Mai when COVID raised its ugly head late in February. And I remember we both were talking, saying, oh my goodness, of course, it was in Wuhan, it was in China. Thailand has normally an extraordinary amount of Chinese tourists. And we were both despairing for Thailand as a country. We thought it would be overrun with COVID. The hospitals were not going to be able to handle it. It was going to be a huge disaster. I obviously left Bangkok. I mean, I was there for a week as I'd planned. Then I left and things go. Anyway, the long and short of it is that didn't happen. That did not happen. Steve, do you know how to turn on your camera there? You can come on in. Up in the upper left-hand corner, Steve, next to that blue microphone, or next to that microphone symbol, is something that looks like a locomotive coming at you. That's actually supposed to be a camera lens. If you click on the microphone and on that camera lens, you will be joining us live on the air. I presume you can hear me. I'm hoping you can hear me. Our producer in London, Michael, says he's having some issues. He's working with him now, so we'll get him on in a moment. But let me tell you, I will. So as I mentioned, in late February, I was with Steve at his home in Chiang Mai. We were despairing as China was exploding with COVID. We were despairing over the future of Thailand. In fact, Thailand's a country of about 73 million people. Last I checked, it may be a few more now, but I don't think so. I don't think they've had any deaths in several months. Last I checked, in this country of 73 million people, they have had 58. Can I repeat that? 58 people who have died from COVID. That's an extraordinary number. In fact, I remember while I was there, all my friends were texting me from the States saying, "You've got to come back to the States. You're right in the epicenter of it." And I said, "Well, I'm not in the epicenter. The epicenter is Wuhan, China, but you've got to get out of there before you get this." Now I tell my friends, I wish I'd stayed there, because my health and life were at much less risk in Thailand than it is in than my life and health are in either Minnesota or certainly in the United States. But there are a couple of things to consider, and we'll talk to Steve about that when he can get in. People in Asia are more used to wearing masks. They do in Tokyo, they do in Bangkok, they do in Shanghai and Beijing. That's sometimes because of urban pollution. Often if they have colds, they will put on masks so that other people don't get their cold. You'll see them walking down the street, which is certainly a considerate thing to do. And also, Thailand has a military government. And when they said we are closing our borders, and you are going to stay isolated in your home for a while, the population said, "We're on it." So Thailand was early in shutting down, as was Taiwan, which has had very, very few deaths. I mean, you can almost count them on four hands. And they have succeeded in whipping COVID, basically. I mean, they're still wearing masks in those countries. Again, we'll see what Steve has to say about that. But they're a little more accustomed than we are to wearing masks and taking care like this. And they also have a government that did a nationwide lockdown, a nationwide decision, as opposed to here in the States, where it was, we're leaving it up to the governors, and some people didn't want to wear masks. It wasn't, I don't know what, it wasn't manly, it wasn't macho. It indicated you were a Democratic snowflake or whatever if you were wearing a mask. None of that happened in some of these Asian countries. So let's see how we're doing. Michael is still working with Steve to get him on in the show. Let me do a little travel news for you while we have a moment, and then when Steve joins, I'll keep quiet. I think I mentioned, if you were listening not too long from now, that Australia announced today that it would it probably wouldn't open its borders until the end of 2021. That is extraordinary. That's more than a year from now. I think that's quite amazing. And Australians can't leave their country without facing a 14-day quarantine in a hotel if they decide to return to Australia. And of course, no one else can visit the country at all. If you happen to subscribe to Travel and Leisure, you will note that the Bauer Alak was named the best hotel in Europe. That's a great hotel in Zurich. In Asia, it's the Four Seasons Hotel Kuala Lumpur. And in the United States, the Olima House in Point Reyes in Northern California. So let's see. I think we have Stephen in the room here. Steve, do we have you there almost?
You do. There's no picture, but I'm here.
Well, we have a picture of you on our screen. So
that's all we need.
Do you not have a laptop there in Chiang Mai, Mr. Businessman?
Actually, I discarded my laptop about 3 years ago and just work off my phone. But that's okay. We can get this done, Rudy.
We can. I was just explaining Steve, while you were working with Michael, I was explaining how you and I were together in Chiang Mai in the end of February, and COVID was raising its ugly head, and we were despairing for Thailand because so many Chinese people come to Thailand, and we thought Thailand was going to be, the hospitals were going to be overrun, the country was going to be in desperate straits, and quite the opposite happened. I haven't checked in maybe a month, Steve. Maybe you have, but I'm still counting 58 deaths in a country of 73 million people in Thailand. Do you have a later number on that?
No, it's that the number has remained the same, and we've had, I mean, zero even hospitalizations in Chiang Mai where I live, and I'm in the hospital, maybe once, maybe twice a month, and just checking on things. And I always ask the question, have there been any admissions for COVID? And the answer is no, always. So what do we attribute this to? It's hard to say. I think, the Thais don't do a lot of, let's say, we're not like Americans. They don't hug and kiss over here when they meet each other. And there is distancing and there is masking. I mean, we're still masking when we go into 7-Eleven or, large venues. But by and large, we've escaped it. And so has Vietnam, oddly enough, and Burma and Laos and Cambodia just don't have the numbers. And it may have something to do with the weather, or maybe they're also chalking it up to there's an immunity among these people. But it's pretty inexplicable, and it's really wonderful because we are living as we would in the in a COVID-free environment. We're all getting together and we don't mask in restaurants, and it's good.
Yeah, I remember you. Just one thing, by the way, on your phone, Michael, my producer, is texting me. He said in the upper left-hand corner, you might be able to turn on a screen. Do you see that?
Yes, I do actually. Just one moment. Let me just hit that.
Again, it's a thing that looks like a locomotive. There you are. Okay, we got you on. Fabulous.
Magic. I've never done this before, so I'm a real newbie to this.
But, this is the first time. This is the first time we've ever had a guest using a phone, so that's great. Good to know.
Good.
I was just about to say that you broke your hand or your wrist or something not long ago, and well, it was a few months ago because we were talking on the phone and you said it's incredible. I went to this hospital and there were nobody there, and I said to the doctors, "Where is everybody?" And they said, "What do you mean everybody?" And you said all the COVID people, and they went, "Oh, we don't have very many." And that was the first time you went to two hospitals in Chiang Mai, as I recall, and one in Bangkok, and they were all, as you say, relatively operating as normal. Which
they shut down. They shut Thailand down in March of 2020, and we were very nervous up here. I can tell you, people were masked up. We were staying in our homes, and then nothing ever happened. There were no reports of deaths.
Right.
There was no report of sickness, and you would have thought that this would have ripped through the villages up country.
Sure.
But no such thing. So we shut down in March of 2020, and we've had, I think, 58 deaths. But as you know, our tourism has taken a tremendous blow. We've gone from 40 million tourists. I've lost you. Hold on, I lost my picture again. We've gone from 40 million tourists to 8 million through March of 2020. And 7 to 10 million people have lost their jobs. That's total. And in the hospitality industry, 3 to 4 million people have been laid off. And so it's been catastrophic for the hospitality industry. And really, nobody sees the end of this until maybe another 2 years.
2 years?
Yeah. Until it recovers. Until we actually come back to where semblance of order.
But Steve, where did those 8 million tourists come from, or was that just internal within the country tourists?
No, that's a very good question. Now you remember that's January and February, of 2020.
Oh, right, before it hit, right.
Yeah, so you had a lot of Chinese tourists coming in then, and a lot of Chinese tourists were trapped here. And they've just basically shipped out recently, and the borders are completely closed. I mean, as you know, because you're tracking this pretty closely, you just can't fly in, and they give you so many mixed signals. They'll tell you that, well, if you got a medical emergency, you can fly in, or if you want to invest money in Thailand, you can fly in. But nobody, in fact, has flown in. You can fly out, Uh, you
Well,
can fly out, but
yeah,
you can't
guests
once
check
you're
out, but they
out.
never check. Guests check out, but they never check back in. Um,
That's exactly what I was going to say. You know, you can't, once you've left Thailand now, you can't come back until they basically open international flights, and nobody knows when that's going to happen.
well, let's talk
So,
about Steve. Let's talk about your life. You have a wife who's Chinese. She does business in Shanghai, and she was in Shanghai when Thailand closed its borders. Not only was she in Shanghai, but she was pregnant with a child who would become your daughter. And she gave
yes,
birth in Shanghai. And you have not seen your daughter, who is how old now?
she's 2 months.
You've not seen or held your daughter because your wife cannot come back into Thailand. And if you go to China, you will have difficulty coming back to Thailand.
Exactly. So we're kind of trapped in a netherworld here. You know, I can't go there. If I do go there, then I can't come back here. And we don't know how long that was last. And I planned on bringing my wife and child back into Thailand, you know, to live with me here.
Of
So
course.
it's complicated. The government is very, very confused. You know, 3 weeks ago, they were going to let a bunch of people come into Phuket, and then the locals were pushing for that, and then the government shut it down. And so it's really up in the air here, unfortunately. But that said, Rudy, it's wonderful living here right now because we've got basically free reign in the country, and which means the mountains and the beach. There are no tourists here. Everything is absolutely dirt cheap, and it will remain that way. You know, I want to encourage people when this breaks to come to Thailand because I don't think you're going to be able to find a better bargain worldwide in terms of a beach or a mountain destination. It's terrific. The prices are they're giving away hotel rooms and everything else is very, very reasonable. So I would encourage your listeners to come to Thailand and help us bring our industry back, our hospitality industry.
Well, I heard a BBC report a couple of days ago on, those parties, the full moon parties in southern Thailand on the beach. Um, and they were just absolute raves. I mean, people packed shoulder to shoulder, drinking all night into the morning, et cetera, et cetera. And, they would leave the beach just covered with litter the next day when they left. And that while the tourism business there, and what's that island called, Steve?
Koh Phanong.
Yeah. While tourism business there is obviously dead, the locals are sort of pleased that the beaches are clean, the water is clean again, and they're not overrun with backpackers and a lot of American hippies, worshiping the full moon and drinking themselves into oblivion. So,
yes, that's true. And the Thais have really kind of taken this in stride. I mean, the people have lost their work, their livelihoods have gone back to the farm and with their parents. But Thailand's kind of taken this breather to refurbish and rebuild and clean up, and really, southern Thailand needed a rest from the tourists. The islands were getting overcrowded and overrun, and there was a lot of rubbish, and they had to shut down beaches. And so, environmentally, this has been very, very good for Thailand. And the Thais, they keep themselves very well occupied. I was in Chiang Mai the other night, and I went by a park that's normally filled with Chinese and Korean and Japanese tourists, and it was filled with Thais. So so some of the businesses, some of the local businesses that cater to the local populace are very, very healthy. They're doing really well. I've seen restaurants absolutely packed out, but the venues that cater to tourists are dead, really dead. It's terrible, and the hotels are really hurting. They just opened up the Four Seasons in Chiang Mai recently, and the only thing they have now is their Sunday brunch because there are absolutely no one's there, and they've got something like 200 staff online all the time, and I don't see that business coming back for a long, long time.
You must get great service at Sunday brunch. What about restaurants and bars? Are there any social distancing requirements in Thailand right now?
Not really. No. I mean, I think that if they're having soccer matches or if they're having Muay Thai matches or rhinoceros beetle fights, I think where you get hundreds of people together, then I think they encourage people to mask. But I was in this little bohemian area last weekend with a lot of friends, and we were in social distancing. There's no need for it, which is amazing. I can't. People in America and Europe probably can't believe that, but there's just it's wide open.
No, it is very hard for us as Americans to imagine this because as you know, masks are a political issue in the United States. We have a hodgepodge of rules, not just state by state, but town by town or county by county, and they're always changing. And as I said to our previous two guests, we talked to people before you from Rome and from we had a guest from Paris and a couple from Rome talking about the realities there. Unique, perhaps, among the world, we have a president who is holding huge political rallies. Some people have masks, most don't. They're shoulder to shoulder. And the president is saying, look, I beat it. It's not that big a deal, in so many words. And we have a cure. We've gone around the corner on this, even as we keep having 700 deaths a day, and the numbers are rising alarmingly. So it is very hard for us to imagine the freedom of movement and social life that you have in Thailand, given also the fact that the economy is really hurting from the lack of tourists. But as you say, and again in that BBC report, they were talking about how tourism folks are saying, maybe we should focus a little more on quality rather than quantity in the future as we market tourism to Thailand.
Yeah. One thing I forgot to mention, Rudy, is that there was no inter-province travel for a long time. In other words, if you lived in one province, you had to stay there. And I think that was really effective. And the other thing that was effective was that there was really no congress between villages. Villages were sealed off. I went up to visit a friend, and I was told by my friend that the village leader came to him and said, look, we just really don't want him here. So it was, that contributed, I think, a lot to the low instances of death and infection here. So that's kind of what's happening in Thailand, and it's a really nice place to be right now, Rudy. It's a great place to be.
I'd love to be there. Steve Croll is a businessman who has lived many decades in Asia, Hong Kong and Bangkok, among other places. He currently lives in the north of Thailand in Chiang Mai, but I know he frequently goes to Bangkok and keeps his finger on the pulse there. Steve, thank you so much for giving us a glimpse of you, and I'm sorry we couldn't have you on full video here the whole time, but we have a picture of you up at all times here on the screen. Thank you for giving us an overview of what's going on in Thailand, and I hope our realities change so your realities can change, and I can come and see you again soon.
Well, listen, I look forward to seeing you over here again, Rudy. I do, and we'll have some fun when you come.
I have no doubt of that. Thank you, Steve, very much.
My pleasure, Rudy. Take care. Cheers.
You too. Bye. Well, there you go. I think I'm going to try to do this again next week with some folks from different countries. Let's see if I can round them up. I was doing a little bit of travel news. Let me see. I just had a couple other items for you here. Let me see if I can call that up again here on my screen. Where is it? Here it is. This will be in my newsletter. By the way, I put out a newsletter every Thursday. It's very chatty about travel and new developments and things, and it's also called I Was Just Thinking. It's free. It is not a sales mechanism. I'm not selling you DVDs or anything. You can subscribe for free by going to maxatours.com. Just go to maxatours.com and scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, and you will see a place to put in your name and your email, and you will receive it. Just a couple of news items before I say goodbye. Driverless vehicles, maybe you've missed this, have debuted in Phoenix. Waymo, which used to be Google's self-driving car project, now has driverless taxis operating in Phoenix in a 50-mile radius around the city. Now, right now, this week, you have to be a member of Waymo One's service to summon a van. But in a few weeks, anybody's going to be able to download in the Phoenix area an Uber-like app and summon a driverless van. So we've talked about this for years. Driverless cars. Well, they're here, at least in Phoenix, and if they work there, I'm sure they'll be coming to a town near you soon. American Airlines is going to join the One World Alliance the last day of March of next year. So you'll be able to use your your miles from Alaska on other One World airlines like American and British Airways, and vice versa. And then there's this Houston startup called Orion Span that just announced plans, believe it or not, to launch a luxury hotel into space that will orbit the Earth by next year. By next year. A 12-day stay is a little pricey at $9.5 million. And I hope they're awarding loyalty points. And the increasing number of COVID-19 rapid testing devices has led the Department of Homeland Security to begin conversations with the British about opening a travel corridor between the United States and the UK with shortened quarantine requirements as soon as the holidays. And speaking of quarantine requirements, I have gotten a lot of queries from viewers when I mentioned that I was with my granddaughters in the UK a couple of weeks ago. First of all, people said, I didn't know you could go to the UK. Well, Americans are allowed to travel to the UK and Ireland if you quarantine for 14 days. I am a grandfather. And a couple of weeks before I went over, and one reason I went over is the British government said, if you're a grandparent helping out with the care of your grandchildren, the quarantine rules don't apply to you. You can roam all around the country. You don't have to stay in it. So I flew over. I was going to stay for a week, which I did. And when I got to the immigration official, he said, where are you staying and why are you here? And I said, I'm staying with my daughter in Brighton, which is outside of London. And I'm helping with my two granddaughters who are 10 and 12, both of which are very true. I took them to school, picked them up from school, etc. So you can visit England and UK. I would plan on a 2-week quarantine, but I have to tell you, there's very little enforcement of that. But that's how I managed to go to England for a week. I think I got at least 7 or 8 emails from viewers saying, how did you do that? How did you get to England? I will tell you, I flew on Chicago on United in a wide body plane, seats about 300, and there weren't more than 35 or 40 people on the plane. So a whole lot of social distancing in the plane. It was an amazing flight. It's like you had the whole thing to yourself. Anyway, wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this was interesting for you. If some of your friends might be interested, in a day or so, this will be on YouTube. You can forward it to the link to them. And nice having you in the house today. Let's all do it again next week. And meanwhile, stay safe. Take care. Bye-bye.